Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week is drummer extraordinaire Charlie Benante of Anthrax. We talk about their new album, For All Kings, the upcoming tour with Slayer and Death Angel, and we look back at the band's greatest moments of the last 35 years and the not-so-great moments of the last 35 years. So, without further ado, here is the one, the only, one of my all-time favorite drummers, Mr. Charlie Benante. We are speaking with drummer extraordinaire Charlie Benante from Anthrax. Of course, the new album is For All Kings. Charlie, always a pleasure to speak with you.
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. So, let's just get started, I guess, with the new album. I mean, here you are 35 years into the career, still making new music. Listen, Anthrax is a brand. We know that you can go to a venue and put the name up there and sell it out. What keeps you interested in coming up with new music and putting out new music?
I guess being inspired is probably the biggest thing that really helps get the creative juices flowing. Not hearing the type of music that I like the way I used to hear it is another reason to create your own. If you don't hear what, you know what I mean? I remember back in the early 80s, there were just so many bands coming out of England that basically were inspiring me to want to do this and, striving to just be a better player, musician, whatever. And I feel like those times are gone now. So inside of, especially me, there's still that hunger,
Right. So then since you mentioned that, then why the sort of a 5-year in between worship music and this one? Why not sort of get back at it at 2013 and another one in 2015? Is it just you're too busy touring?
The actual workload that happened was so incredible. There was it felt like tour after tour after tour. And of course, if there's a demand, then you try and meet that demand. But it's really impossible for me, especially to write songs on the road. There's just too many distractions. There's just too many other things going on around it. I mean, other bands will probably understand what I'm saying. It's where the days of you would do maybe a few interviews, maybe go to a radio station back in the day to do that, and you would have some time to yourself during the day. And then, of course, sound check, you do the gig. Nowadays, it just seems like your day is jam-packed with stuff. You have to do so much more in order to make it work out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and of course, and let's be honest, with the state of the music business is, you make your money on the road. Albums are nice and all, but they're almost like a trophy at this point. They're really not bringing in a livelihood, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So talk to me also about the songwriting. Now, you, of course, and Scott have always been the main songwriters in Anthrax. Tell me about your dynamic working with Scott, and then also maybe comment on why not bring in the other guys for more creative input, more from Joey, more from Frankie. Talk about that.
Well, Scott and I have this kind of chemistry that works. It's been there since the early 80s, like when Spreading the Disease was going to be started. I stepped up and Scott stepped up. Scott took more of the lyric side of things. I took more of the music side of things. And then we just had a really good relationship that way, and it worked really well. And of course, the other guys added to that too, I'm not leaving them out of it, but basically the idea for a song usually comes in from me. This record, Frankie stepped up a bit too. He is really, really involved in the melodies of the song, like how the vocals are going to be, and Joey as well. Like Joey always basically takes the stands, like, you guys, work that out, and then I'll come in and put my spin on it, and that's the way it's been working. And I think it's the best way to work with the band. I think everybody's happy. It's almost like this production line. There's no arguing about anything. I mean, of course, there's arguing here and there, but it's not like it once was. You know what I mean? I think we all know the goal here and what we want to achieve.
Yeah, and the other thing I find interesting is that as the drummer, you go into those writing sessions a lot of times with an acoustic guitar or a guitar. You're not so much working out the drum arrangements as you are going, hey, I've got this riff for you. So, talk to me about that process with you going in with a guitar and working on the songs.
Like, it's funny, like in a rehearsal space or wherever, like if the guys come here to Chicago, I have like two sections set up. Like I have my drum set up and then I have my guitar rig set up. And in the beginning, I'll usually just sit at the guitar rig area and we'll just kind of, work things out. And this time, I went to Scott's place in LA for a couple of times and did it the same way. I had a little rig set up here and then had a drum kit. And, for me, it's like I push myself really hard as a guitar player, even more so than a drummer, because I still feel that I'm still developing as a guitar player. I mean, in drumming too, of course, you're always developing, but as a guitar player, I seem to want to push myself more. Like I'll come up with some fucking crazy riff and, and I could tell the guys are like, oh, that's going to be a workout. You know what I mean? But it just makes me, it actually makes me happier that I am pushing myself. And if they see it, then that means that I am doing the right thing.
Yeah. So let's talk about workout, because thrash music is not meant to be played by folks that are as like you and me getting older and older. How do you stay in shape to play this kind of music? Because when you're 20 and you're full of piss and vinegar, nice and easy. When you're above 50, or in my case, it gets a bit tough, right?
My only challenge is my problem with my carpal tunnel problem. Other than that, we just played a show Saturday in North Carolina, and we were just fucking on fire. And I could see it and I could say it, playing long, extensive tours, for anyone, it just gets too much anyway. So I think you really have to treat it as, okay, I have to watch what I'm doing here, watch what I'm doing there. We really don't drink as much as we used to. We really don't beat ourselves up, and I think that has a lot to do with it, just taking care of yourself, because you're out there to do a specific thing, and that's a performance. So why would you want to play just all hungover? I hate those shows when you're just hungover and it's just, I just want to go and lay down,
Yeah. Is that part of the strategy for Anthrax in terms of your touring? Because, the last time you were in Montreal, you opened up for Motorhead. You're coming back in September on the Slayer Death Angel tour. Is that part of the whole thing, that you'll get a nice opening slot, you'll come out and do 45 minutes to 50 minutes or an hour and not really abuse the body to the point of doing a 2.5 hour show of this high intensity kind of thing?
Well, for the most part, I would like to do a headlining show, you know what I mean? But these things just keep coming. So it's kind of hard to say no, because we're very, very, very friendly and everything with the Slayer guys. And it's a good, it's good for both, you know what I mean? Morale is good. Everybody has fun when we're together, so it's something where if you get a call and it's like, Slayer want to do this. Okay, it's that type of thing. And so how do you say no to that?
You can't. I mean, and that's a great tour. That's going to be an incredible tour. Seeing you guys with Slayer again. In fact, you were on tour with Slayer, I think 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, 1 year. Last year.
There was a European tour. I mean, we've done in the last like 6 years. We've been together, quite a bit.
The band is celebrating 35 years as a band, which just in itself, saying it is incredible. What are some of the highlights for you looking back? What are the moments where you just thought, yeah, that is Anthrax. That is what we're about. We nailed it on this tour, this album, this moment. What are some of the highlights for you over the last 35?
Wow. I mean, one of the greatest things that ever happened to us is a record label signed us. It's nice when you're shown some love from, of course, a record company, a T-shirt company, your fans. You know what I mean? So I remember going up to Island Records, of all places. They signed us, and I remember just thinking about it. Wow, this is a label that doesn't have any other heavy metal bands. And that's a good thing, right? Because that means that they will put full attention on this band in that genre, and that's what they did. So that was a really important experience, And then the Among the Living record, and I say this a lot, that's the record that really gave us a career.
Right.
It kind of solidified us as, okay, this band just had a tremendous, record that went on globally to reach so many people. And, it gave us a career. So then you start going through other highlights. I mean, it doesn't matter where I am, dude. I could be in like Target or Costco, and someone will say, "Oh, I just saw you on Married with Children." That was That's another funny. One of those things that happened that was, wow, that came out of nowhere. But it's something that people really enjoyed. So I was happy that something like that happened. It was fun. And we wouldn't have gotten that if we hadn't done, let's say, Among the Living. So it all goes back to certain things.
Yeah, it really does.
Playing Yankee Stadium was probably one of the highlights for the band. And me personally, I grew up there. And being able to play in this stadium that has so much history, having my mom there, that was like the last show that she ever saw. And I was so happy that it got to that, and there's just a lot of things. So these are certain things that just stand out in my mind.
Yeah, that Yankee Stadium show was phenomenal. So let's do the other side of the coin. When you look back on 35 years, are there moments where you just look back and say, what the fuck did we do? I mean, we screwed that up royal. I mean, are there some moments where you just went, wow, we were just too stupid for our own good on this one?
I think sometimes I look back at things and people always will say I have no regrets, but yet I think deep down you regret this or you regret that. I don't have many regrets. I just wish that at the time maybe we weren't so arrogant about things, right, or even ignorant about certain things. And maybe if there were people around us being more, no, don't do that, and not just, yes, okay, let them do whatever they want. Maybe things would have changed here and there. I mean, there was that period in the 90s that it wasn't good, but I don't think we could have prevented what was happening. I mean, heavy metal was just a bad name. And I think we all had to just kind of ride it through, and it's like a cycle, and, we just had to ride it through. And, getting Joey back in the band
Right.
was the thing that, long story short, at Metallica's induction to the Hall of Fame, afterwards we went out, and myself, Scott, and Lars were talking at the bar, and Lars just came out with the Big Four thing. What do you guys think about that? And, we were like, fuck, that would be great, of course, And we talked further about it, and then Scott and I later on just looked at each other, like, we got to get our shit together. And like, that's what we did. We got our shit together.
You mentioned the 90s. Is that just sort of the period, or are you thinking more the albums that you made in the 90s you regret? Because, they're obviously great albums. You don't regret having made Sound of White Noise? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I don't regret that at all.
Oh, okay,
no,
good.
No.
Because, that's a fantastic album.
Love it. I love that record. Right. And there were reasons why things went the way they did, of course, and I can't put the blame all on the band. I have to blame the situation that we were in. We had signed to Elektra Records. We put out a record that did very well, like extremely well. And the label that signed us was being removed. Everyone who, worked that record, Sound of White Noise, was now being fired. A new regime was coming in. They didn't want nothing to do with us. They didn't sign us, So we lost everybody who was in our camp there, So we went into making this record called Stomp, basically with no guidance, no nothing. We didn't know it at the time, but they weren't going to work the record. They were just going to let it go, and that was it. We were off Elektra Records after making 2 records.
Yeah.
So that was the start of what I would call the bad momentum period.
Gotcha. And of course on Stomp, you've got a song called "Drop the Ball," which I guess was what the label did with you. But you also have one of my favorite Anthrax songs on there, "Fueled." So it turned out pretty good. When you mentioned a highlight being Among the Living, when you get into the studio to do worship music and For All Kings, do you go back and say, we need to make another Among the Living? Has that ever been sort of the thought? We need to recapture that? Or have you always just thought, no, we just need to keep moving forward?
No, never really thought of it that way. Like, we never really modeled it after another record or another song, Like, I would just go into my studio here and I would just play, and I would even forget where I was. And I often said I was just possessed by the guitar, and later on I'd listen back and I'm like, what the hell? I don't even remember putting that down, and I was just doing this, and I don't know why it was coming, but I was just glad that it was coming. And my goal, of course, was to write 20 songs that were fucking kick-ass. I didn't want to have any leftovers. And unfortunately, there were some leftovers that didn't quite make it. Scott just ran out of, ideas. He just went dry for a bit. So there was about 3 or 4 songs that were left, musically speaking, that we are going to, of course, get back to.
Right. Because I just asked because, as a Kiss fan myself and as you a Kiss fan, you know that every time they do a new album, it's always like, well, this is Destroyer meets Revenge. This is Destroyer meets Dynasty. So, and of course, I never hear Anthrax say, this is Persistence of Time meets it. So I always got this perception that the band loves their history, but just always looks forward. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Gene Simmons would always bum me out when we would start talking, and I'd say, I'd mention a song like "See You in Your Dreams,"
Right. Great song.
And he would say to me, well, that came from Mata Hooples, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I don't want to hear that. I just, you know, these are Kiss songs, you know, and he would always do that, you know.
Yeah, don't peel off the fantasy. Like, you know, that's why in the 70s, don't take off the makeup. We're better thinking that you're superheroes. Let me ask you about persistence of time. Here's another one. Now, when you said that Among the Living put you on the map, I always thought it was persistence of time. For you, what was that? What was your perception of that album first? And then I'll go with a follow up. Obviously, a great moment for you.
That record was more of a darker period for us, and the reason for that darker period was because of the record that was before it, and that was State of Euphoria. People have to understand that after that whole Among the Living cycle, that whirlwind that we were in, we were a band that was, at the time, 3-4 years old. And we were just kids, basically, being, you know, catapulted into this, you know, thing called fucking, you know, big rock star shit, you know, playing shows with these bands, doing festivals with these bands. I mean, it was unbelievable because we didn't have a chance to really process it all. We were just living so fast, this here, going there, you know what I mean? Fucking doing a show in Tampa, the next day flying to Oslo. I mean, it was just a whirlwind. So what was happening, especially with like the Among the Living tour and all that stuff, the press was amazing to us. When it came time for State of Euphoria, we felt that they turned on us and they were picking at us and just kind of trying to push buttons and saying crazy shit to us like, why do you smile in photos and stuff like that? And we were just like, huh? Like, we just didn't understand it. We weren't looking outside, looking in. We were inside looking out. So we didn't notice what was going on. Towards the end of that whole State of Euphoria cycle, started to become apparent that, wow, maybe we let it go a little bit. Kind of the fucking colorful shorts and the certain things. I thought maybe got out of hand, and we kind of just stripped it away. And that's when I think the darker tone came back in. You know what I mean? And that was going to be Persistence of Time. So we were totally feeling that people had turned on us, even though the record sold a lot of records, you know what I mean? But I think for me, especially inside, I wasn't fulfilled with that record at all. I felt it was rushed. It wasn't complete, and it really bothered me that we pretty much let it go without working on it a little more because of the demands of a tour or your schedule. And from that moment on, we said, well, we'll never do that again.
Yeah, I agree. And I can tell you as a fan, you know, you talk about don't smile in pictures, but there's a great importance on image in a lot of this stuff. And I remember at that time seeing some of the videos on Much Music up here in Canada thinking, wow, they look sort of goofy. And I don't mean that as an insult. I just thinking, why is my heavy metal guy not like in a black T-shirt with black pants? And it's weird that I even think that, but you know, hey, it looks great now, and it's certainly a great album. But Persistence, you know, Keep It in the Family, Belly of the Beast, Got the Time, just classic metal. And then after that, you decide to make a change. Why were you not able to move forward with Joey into the next phase?
You know, it's like I really don't like even like discussing that period because
fair enough.
It just brings back things that maybe we don't even need to go into because it's just such a to just make it short and sweet, it's like I just think we were young and arrogant, and we didn't, like I said before, we didn't have enough people around us to tell us no. And I just think that when I look back at it, I wish we had a little more guidance, and you know.
But you have it now, and For All of Kings is probably, if not one of the best, certainly top 3 Anthrax albums, at least for me. I mean, you really nailed it, and that's hard to do 35 years into the career. So, congratulations on that.
It's believe me, it's very hard to do. But I think this is something that I think a lot of bands are they're just lacking in. You have to find that hunger again. Why you did this in the first place. Stop just, going through the motions. Like, reach in and dig and find it again. You know what I mean? It's there, and it sucks when other people who were basically responsible for certain records, certain songs, move on. They don't want to do it anymore. And then some of the guys in the band, of course, are there and they want to do it, but sometimes the spark doesn't happen. And, one of the biggest things about getting Joey back in the band too was repairing old relationships, and, we were 5 guys who became like just brothers out on tour. And sometimes brothers have issues. Sometimes brothers fight. Sometimes certain people have ways of acting that you didn't see it coming. And, some people don't like to be talked to or know that they're fucking up because they're just so far past it. And sometimes they just need to be brought back down to earth. And I think that's what it's all about in this whole business, is that some people just need to be brought back down to earth and just say, hey, man, we love you. We want you here, let's get it together, and sometimes it works.
And it really works on this one. And I'll I'm glad to see that Anthrax is a band that's not trying to recreate their Destroyer. You're not trying to do Among the Living Part 2 and Part 3 and Part 8 and
Yeah. No.
And I love that. Now, I see that our time's up. We had 20 minutes. We're at 27. Charlie, always a pleasure. I look forward to the September show here in Montreal. Didn't disappoint when you opened for Motorhead. I know you're not going to disappoint on this one. It's just, you guys still got it. And
yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, there's sometimes people need a little fire under their ass to just get it back again,
And you guys definitely got it. Thank you, Charlie.
Cool, man. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, bro.
Cheers. And there you have it, folks. My interview with Charlie Benante of the band Anthrax. The new album is For All Kings. And with that, thank you for listening. Please head over to my Twitter account at Mitch Lafon and follow me if you can. And over at the Facebook page, one-on-one, Mitch Lafon. Thank you for Charlie. Looking forward to that tour this fall. And there you have it, folks. Bye for now. Oh, my.